I've lived in Florida for over 20 years. And during that time, I've experienced and prepared for over 30 storms, some tropical storms and some hurricanes. And then that's not to mention the ones that were projected or forecast to hit Florida that skirted Florida or went another direction. One that comes to mind is Hurricane Katrina. It went right by where I live off the coast, far enough where the damage was minimal. And so we're going to talk and do a deep dive today into how we can help you manage, create a system and prepare better, not only your business for the hurricane that may be coming or the hurricane season itself, but also prepare your customers' homes, both before the storms head toward you, and then, of course, what you should do or should concentrate on when the storm is bearing down on you. Hi there, Home Watch professionals. My name is Bill, and welcome back to Home Watch Advisor. As I mentioned, we're going to talk today about putting a system together that will help you deal with what comes along with managing other people's property when strong tropical storms are bearing down on your area of wherever it may be. It doesn't have to be Florida. If you have a home watch business anywhere that is hurricane prone, this is going to be a good video for you. So if you find any of this information as we go along helpful, do us a favor to help spread this to other people, to get it out to other people, is smash the like button, and also, if you would, share it with another person that may find the information here valuable for their business or maybe just in particular their home. So picture this. A storm is bearing down on your state or where you're at, and you've got a dozen or two or 3 dozen homes that you're protecting or caring for, and you're trying to make a plan as to what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. The phone is ringing off the hook. You have people texting you, and you just have so many things coming at you that you can't decide to get started or how to get started. If this sounds familiar, this is going to be a great video for you, because we're going to set up a sort of a system for you so that not only will it help reduce the stress that comes along with hurricane season, but it's also going to be a way for you to maybe increase profits and revenue for your company. I'm talking about turning chaos into profit, stress into a form of a system that will help you, and panic into preparation. If you are new here, or if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so right now. Take a moment. That will ensure that the next time we put a video out, which is once a week, that you're going to be notified by YouTube that the video has been uploaded and that it's available for you to view. The 4 points that we're going to cover today is going to be, first, preparation. Now, it seems that that would be sort of self-explanatory, just the word preparation. Okay, go out and prepare. But there are things that you need to know, learn, understand, and do that will help your preparation efforts, save you time, make you more money. And then we're going to talk about basically what items that you should be doing for shutter service or key holder service, and how that all sort of fits together, because that is part of preparation, but some of you aren't doing shutters, or some of you may or should be not doing shutters. We're going to discuss that a bit. And then also we're going to talk about communication prior to, during, and after the storm, and how sometimes it can be difficult. And lastly, we'll talk about the post-storm reporting and what's important to remember there. So when a storm is already heading your way, and right now we have a storm that's out, well, 2 storms actually, out in the central mid-Atlantic, and I should say central western Atlantic because it's just about to the Dominican Republic and just to the east of that. But we have these storms out there, and currently they're projected for the Carolinas as far as the landfall or possible landfall. But some of the indications are they keep moving a little bit westerly each time there's a new update. And it doesn't take, when they're that far away, it doesn't take but a little bit of a change in direction to move it closer to where we're at here in Florida. And the reason I'm bringing it up, you may be a home watch provider in the Carolinas, you may be a home watch provider in Texas, but the idea is that um, the once a storm is projected in your area, whether it's a real, definite hit, or if it's not, um, you already are at the point where you probably can't get 30% of what you needed to get done at that time. You're running out of time as it gets closer. You know the feeling, and most people don't know this. The homeowner, they think that you're going to be able to put shutters up and do all the preparation right up until the day it hits. They don't take into consideration the conditions, the weather conditions, the wind conditions, the lightning conditions, or maybe the fact that you have to take care of your home too, or maybe even evacuate. So we're going to discuss those ideas as we go along, and there are things that you can do to help communicate that to your homeowner. So pre-season uh, storm preparation or pre-storm preparation can be a gold mine for your business. And I'm not saying to you that you should prey on homeowners to make money. I'm saying that there are a lot of homeowners out there who just simply leave their home not thinking of a tropical storm or a hurricane coming their way. And so when you take on that responsibility, they sign up with you, whether they've been with you years before or maybe it's their first year. You need to make sure that they understand there are certain things that they should do. Bring in the lanai furniture. We all know what we should do. Bring in lanai furniture, secure things that would be blowing away that are under 75 pounds and so on and so forth. Make sure your shutters are all organized and ready to go. But my point is that those homes that haven't done that. And before it gets crazy and before a storm is even on the horizon, you should have a system by which, as you're making your first service call or your second service call on these homes uh, from the very beginning of the year, you notate, the Smiths left the lanai furniture out. The Smiths shutters look a shambles. I'm looking at them in the garage. They don't appear to be stacked in order, and so on and so forth. Um, there are all of these other little things that you can sort of bring up to the Smiths as well. Are the gutters in good repair? Are the downspouts, are they loose? Do they need to be maybe repaired? As you're going along doing that, many of these items you can do if you're so inclined. So you itemize these shortcomings of the properties and you send an email, a quote, or however you communicate with your homeowner to explain to them, maybe even with pictures, that these are a good idea and this is why. And then explain to them also that if we get into the heat of the battle of preparing for a hurricane and any one of these things are not done, they quite possibly may never get done. I'll give you a prime example. I had a homeowner. This is I'm back when I first got started, so I've learned, and I'm passing that on to you. They had 17 openings, just windows everywhere and three sliders. It was just a big home, and so a hurricane's coming, and I had a crew. At the time I was doing hurricane shutters, and so we got to the house. We put all of the shutters out at every window. There was no map to it. There was no organization. We struggled with that. We got it out. And then we went to look because it was the type that you put the shutters up on studs and then put your wing nuts in. There were no wing nuts. They were lost. The people had bought the house from somebody else. Nobody had paid much attention to it. The homeowner didn't know, and so on. And so here we are in a situation where we can't put but one window up. That's all we have nuts for. And we put one window up and left. So that in that particular instance, had I had my system, which I didn't have at the time, I could say to that homeowner, I can't see anywhere where we have these wing nuts. Do you have any? No, we don't. Or yes, we do. Or I don't know. And then uh, we could have ordered the nuts and had them here. But in the heat of the battle, storm is coming. I mean, you couldn't find a wing nut in Tennessee, let alone Florida, right? And so we couldn't do our job. Had we had that preparation, we would not only would we have put all of the shutters up, but we would have had even a few extra wing nuts for the neighbors or whomever. But we could have done that. And so what you should suggest to a homeowner like that, or any of your homeowners for that matter, when was the last time you had your shutters up? Maybe it's a good idea we put them up and make sure we have all of the supplies, all of the shutters, and a map. And if we don't have one, this is the time for us to make one and put it all together. And when we take them down from the windows, we take them down and put them in order in the rack in the garage, and we secure where the nuts are, and everything is done. So we're ready if a hurricane were to start coming our way. I don't know what your charge for that would be, but you're doing it when you're not under the gun for extra income. And if you have 100 homes and 30 of them need that service, and you provide that service on a weekend or one of your spare days, and you do that for the 10 weeks leading up to the heat of the summer and the hurricane season, you've done three a week. And if that's 200 a house or $300 a house, now you see your bottom line has increased. So the other thing that it does when you go through and you've made the list of things and you've itemized what needs to be done as the professional, and you send this quote and information out to the homeowner, it puts it back on the homeowner. So let's say if the homeowner gives you pushback or doesn't want to spend the money, or they maybe want to depend upon their neighbor or whomever, you have protected your business against any litigation should the job not get done or the job can't be done because the supplies weren't there. You've put it back on the homeowner and you've protected your business. What would that mean to your business? Could be tens of thousands of dollars that you've saved yourself. The other thing that that does also is it lightens your workload when it comes time to prepare for the hurricane. Now you're not scrambling trying to figure out the mapping of the windows, whether you have everything in order. It's a much more orderly kind of a situation. What could take an extra hour or two, which you don't have, is already taken care of, and it's ready to go in the proper order, and it's much cleaner, much easier, less stressful for you. And finally, what it also does is when the homeowner realizes that they left unprepared, whatever it may be, furniture from the lanai or uh, you know shutters, gutters, whatever it is you've done or you've had done since to prepare that home, they realize now that they have more to do next year to be better homeowners of properties that are in a hurricane prone area, which then lightens your load next year. Maybe you don't make the extra money from doing the things with the shutters that you would have done, or maybe some extra lanai furniture off or whatever. But you also don't have the stress nor the worry or have the scheduling problem, because we all know that scheduling when the heat's on, and when I mean heat, storm's coming, it's coming at you, can be a nightmare. Even getting people to pull the trigger on things that they should do. We all had it. We've worked the southern part of the area. You've got all of that work done. Now you're working in the middle or the northern part of the area. And one of the people who didn't pull the trigger in the southern area calls you and says, "Hey, Bill, sorry getting back to you, but Hey, can you pull that lanai furniture off the lanai and put it in the garage for me? I know I should have told you earlier. What's that do? Just blows up your schedule, right? I got to the point where I used to say I'll get it at the very end if I can. If not, I'm sorry. And that's a tough thing to say, but the reality is you can't be driving all over town when somebody else can't make the decision to do what's necessary to protect their home and their property and possibly their neighbor's property. So I touched on this a little bit. This is another part of what we just talked about. But unprepared properties are a huge liability for your business. And what I mean by that is an unprepared piece of property that you've already outlined what should be done, and you've identified it and sent that information to the homeowner and asking them, let's get this together and get it done before storms head this way. Of course, there are always going to be those last minute Johnsons, and I don't mean the Johnsons, I'm just saying last minute people. There are also going to be the situations where, no, that's not what you said, Bill. And then all of a sudden, when you're in a dealing with an insurance company, the insurance company doesn't want to pay. The homeowner's trying to say, "Oh, it wasn't me," and your insurance company is now drawn into a litigation kind of a situation. And I talked about this a little earlier, where the homeowner is basically forgetful, at best forgetful, or out and out, maybe just throwing you under the bus. But the idea is that you don't want to be in those situations. There are liabilities, are they not? And anytime that you can limit or completely eliminate your liability, it's better. So working with your homeowners and getting them into the program is maybe it isn't good for this year because you're teaching them this year, but hopefully next year they're on point and in the program and working with you, protecting their home. And if you always have that same person who's always not, it may be a year or two down the road when you have to realize that the risk isn't worth the reward or the amount of money that you make with them, and you'll just have to cancel their contract, and it's not a bad idea. The other part of that is also that for every hour you struggle with the home that's not prepared is an hour away from you helping the homeowner who did their due diligence and they were prepared, but because you're stuck at home A, you can't get to home B in a reasonable amount of time. I had that happen one year, um, Hurricane Ian, in fact, where we were struggling with some of the houses, and I wasn't doing it at this point in time. I had a third party provider, and they were very good, but they were a third party provider, and so I directed them to what houses and where. We got into the last two properties, the last property, last two homes. And I decided that let's go do the smaller home first because that way we'll get into the bigger home. Storms are coming. And I wanted to make sure that once we got on property, they worked hard to get that house done rather than to say, hey, Bill, it's time for us to quit. Even though the storms weren't close, but they were coming and we knew that. But we got that first house done, and they just looked at their phone and they said, we can't get a big home done in this period of time. Now, whether they could or couldn't is we don't know. We'll never know. They just said not going to do it, and they left, and I had no recourse but just not do the house. During the storm it wasn't damaged. We didn't have an issue, but the idea was because we were held up on other houses, that last house could have been done if we had just another hour or just another hour and a half. So that's another liability that we never think of. The good people, when I say good people, the people who prepare, uh, can sometimes get penalized by the people who didn't prepare. And you're in the middle, which is part of your stress level. So now let's talk about the reporting, post-storm reporting, and it's very important. Don't do what I did. Sort of try to learn from my mistakes. And early on, I was really good at getting the job done in the heat of battle. I was very poor at documenting what I did. And what I mean by that was when it came to me making notes and being prepared as to what we did, how long we were on a property, and so on and so forth, which is how we charged. Um, I didn't do such a good job with that. We got the jobs done, the shutters up. We made sure that all the photos were taken, and we had documentation with regards to helping the customer in case the storm did damage their house. Shutters are up. This is how they were done, so on and so forth. But I didn't. Wasn't a good business person. So what you need to do is make sure that you take a moment before the storm even gets to you, before you've even gotten into the heat of battle on the first storm, and decide and make sure that you maintain um, that it's important for you to do the documentation on each of the properties. Now, if you're just the key holder uh, and you're helping people access the garage to get the shutters, or you're there to see that they've come back and see to make sure they've done the job and you're going to take your photos and stuff. Make sure that you're documenting everything, or if you're doing the shutters, I mean, some people do that, but make sure you're documenting everything so that you understand um, what you've done. Many times in our minds, and this is, I have a very, I think, a good mind, but I always said to myself, oh, at the end of the day, I'll sit down and I'll have this all organized, and I never did. I was so tired by the time I worked all day long in the post-storm reporting. You get up before the sun, you're out, you're driving, you've got the stress of all sorts of things. Where are you going to find fuel because some gas stations aren't pumping? You got to make sure you're not driving through flooded areas. Are the power lines down? Is it dangerous to walk around the house? All sorts of things that are tugging at your mind as well. And you just simply get so tired that by the time you get home, it's shower if you can, if you have power and if you have water, and then it's get some sleep and do it all over again tomorrow. I had over 100 homes. Many of times I had 150, and so one person or two people can maybe get to all of those homes in 5 days, 6 days. So it's a very tough time. You have to stop before you leave that property and document. Actually, it's better to get started a different way, in my opinion, and that is either video or at least photos. So have a timestamp. You get to the property in some way, you identify the property, whether it's the key up in the photo or maybe a piece of paper or it's the house itself and the address. And you take a photograph. And then, of course, you're photographing everything as you go along. And do a voice memo when you're walking around the property, things that you see, things that you did, and so on and so forth. And then when you're finished, make sure you take a final photo so that you know this is the end of scene, so to speak. And if you do that and it's on your phone, you've got now the documentation of the photo or the video and also the audio recording um, to to help you then transcribe what it is you did there. And this is a much better way to do things as opposed to um, trying to write it down in and head to the next location as well. Now, I've had some people say that they'll take the photos and they'll do the audio recording as they're driving to the next location, which is still fine because it's fresh in your mind. Where it's not fresh in your mind is when you've been out for 16 hours in the heat and humidity and all of the stress in doing these post-storm reports that you then end up so spent at the end of the night that it just doesn't seem as important. And what happens then is the homeowner gets theirs done because you make sure that you've done whatever you could for them, and you've gotten your information all aligned for them, photos and whatever it might be. But you short yourself on your dollars and cents, and so what money you may have made pre-storm in prep that we just talked about, you're losing by not charging for the things that you did during the storm. And I used to always say to myself, I hated storms because I couldn't make any money with them. And the reality is, I could make money with them. I just didn't have a system until the very end. And so once you work through all of these issues and have that system in place, you'll find that I don't want to say you'll look forward to storms, but storms will not be a negative for your bottom line. It will actually pad it a bit, and it should because you work so doggone hard. So if you're not going to do the videos and or the audio recordings and maybe just take a few photos, then you need to stop before you leave each property with your notepad and make good detailed notes. It may only take 5 minutes, but it's the 5 minutes you need to spend for yourself and your business. And the reality of it is it may put you off by one house that day, but it's necessary for you to do, and it's part really of the post-storm reporting. And so make sure you do it. Just stop. Maybe it's time for a bottle of water. Sit in the air conditioning in the car. Maybe grab a quick snack or something while you do it, but make sure that you do it. It's important. So let's talk about communicating to your customer. Uh, One of the frustrations that you'll have in a hurricane situation is that, remember, you're living in the disaster normally, but communication is going to be difficult during the storm. So you want to communicate first prior to the storm. I used to do and still do. In fact, on Florida Home Watch Association.org, I have and will continue to do storm reports. And I did that all the time through my not on that website, for my business with my customers. So every morning I would tell them, I would write a report and say, hey, look, this is what I've watched other people say. This is what I think I know from my experience and so on and so forth. Here are some of the things that we should be looking for. It's not time, or it is time to prep, whatever the circumstances are. And I just kept them informed. And then I gave them resources that I use to find out this information, because they're up north. They don't know what's going on. And the little bit they get can be way off mark. And that's all I'll say about that. But so I always communicated, and I would always tell them as the storm started to come our way and it looked more and more like it was going to come our way and hit our area. Communication is going to be tough, folks, after the storm hits. Cell towers can be damaged and down, and then what happens if one is down, then the others have to take up the bandwidth. And if you have two or three down, then all of a sudden we've got overworked cell towers. Eventually, we may not be able to get information out. Please trust that I will be out there taking care of your home. I'm going to take the photos. I can do what I can do, and I'm going to make sure that if I can get somebody there to repair it, I will. But the one thing that I do make sure that everybody knows is that I'm doing it, and I'll let them know as quickly as I can when cell service comes back. Or there are some places where you can find that they have cell service that would be like here in our area, the top of a major highway bridge over water. The higher I got, the better the service. Or at 4 o'clock in the morning, believe it or not, when people weren't all, everybody was sleeping and they weren't trying to get out their friends and loved ones. Starlink, you could, I'm not saying go out and buy Starlink, but if you have it, you can utilize that. And if you do have that and you can utilize that, keep that in mind. That's another possibility. But you want to prepare them before so that they know that you're thinking. And then they'll remember, oh, yes, Bill said that it might be difficult. And then as you do get reception back, make sure you get back to everybody with the photos that they so desperately want to see and so on. And it's important that you continue to communicate. I ran that report that I was telling you about. I would run that report all the way past when the hurricane had already gone, the storm's out of the area, and I'd still run it while I was out providing the services to let people know, yes, we have, today I'm getting to this particular area, I'm going tomorrow to this area, and so on. The communication's important, because otherwise they may have a blackout period of 5 to 10 days, and then what you have are homeowners hopping planes coming down to the area where it's harsh living at best and can be dangerous living. More people are injured or killed after a storm than during a storm, and that's documented. No, they shouldn't be on the roof, and they've tried to put a tarp on. They slide off the roof and break their neck or injure their extremities. the last thing you really want, in my opinion, are your homeowners down right away, trying to mitigate issues uh, before it's safe. And that's because you want them next year as a customer, right? Let alone the fact you don't want them to be hurt. But most people, all they think about is, well, I can get down there and I'll get to the house and I'll get things taken care of. They don't think about the fact they don't have water, they don't have electricity, they may not have gas to get there. They just don't think about roads being impassable and so on and so forth. So um, the more communication that you can put forth to your customers, the better off you're going to be with the phone calls coming into you, and also the safer they may be in the end. So we talked a little bit about how pre-storm preparation can be a gold mine, and you can. There's all sorts of other things that you can think of that you could do also to prepare for the storms. You could go out and buy tarps for these folks and charge for your time doing that. Everyone should have in their garage tarps, buckets, maybe some plywood if they have some place to put it. That would be helpful. Um, a 4x8 sheet of half-inch plywood. Suggest it. You can go get it. And so when you go to the store, you pick up, if you have the ability, you pick up 10 sheets of plywood and 40 tarps, and you distribute it to the people who have said, let's do that. And then you charge for your time and having done so. So there's a lot of things that you can do that I haven't mentioned, and you have to be a little bit creative there. But the idea is the preparation can make you money every year, and it doesn't have to be that a storm is coming. Then when the storm is coming, there are things that you need to do and sort of schedule and prepare for. And because you've done the prep, there's less stress for you in getting those things done. Then there's the communication while the storm is coming, as it hits, and thereafter. And then basically the post-storm reporting is documentation, and very important that you do documentation and that you're safe and that you can only do so many homes at a time. The one thing that I would say, and this is what you have to tell your homeowners and you have to think about for yourself when it comes to that documentation as well. There's always going to be somebody who's first. And if there's somebody's first that's first, there's always going to be somebody last. The way that you provide that service, and this is a good rule of thumb, you go to the area that you know that there was more damage in your particular area and work your way back to where you think or know there's less damage. Now, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't find a home in that particular last area that hadn't gotten hit hard for whatever reason, but you had a reason for doing it that way. So there's always going to be somebody who's first and somebody who's going to be last. And unfortunately, some people, will be last and even have damage. But the idea is that you can articulate that to a homeowner um, when you're telling them that, I'm sorry, it's been 5 days and I just finally got here. I didn't realize your home was damaged, but I was doing it because I worked from where we were aware that most of the damage was, and now we're in your area. The other thing you might want to do too is tell your homeowner, especially if you're communicating to them in your emails leading up to a storm, if they know of anybody who's in the area, in the community, a friend, somebody that lives there year round, um, please reach out to them so that they could maybe uh, email them, telephone them after the storm has hit and say, hey, John, don't worry about it. We weren't hit at all. Nobody's got damage in the neighborhood. Everything's safe. I will go over and I'll take a photograph of the outside of your house to prove to you that it's fine, if they have communications, that is. And so that's another way that you can lower your stress. My experience with shuttering is I've done it all. I first started out with a crew and I shuttered homes. And then I started to realize that as I did that, I was taking on a risk because my insurance really wasn't covering shuttering. So I have to either get more insurance, and with that contractor's license or a handyman's license, I decided, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'll go out and research and find companies that would be third parties, and they'll provide the service. I'll be the key holder, and I'll just go with them. When they're finished, we'll get to one house, and I'll open it up, and I'll move on to another house and help another team open it up, and so on and so forth. Then go back to the first house, confirm that the house has been done, make sure it's locked up, take photographs, and go to the second home, and we would just leapfrog through the system. That's all well and good, but the best way to do it is not to even be responsible to go out and get, in my opinion, that is, to go out and get that third party service or two. Give Go out and research who might provide the service, provide the list to your homeowner, and say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, the best thing for you to do is have a company contracted with their responsibility of making sure that the shutters are up, and Bill will facilitate your access to the shutters if need be, if there's not a key box or a keypad or something that the homeowner would want those people to use to get into the garage. And so you still get your key holder service and you make your money, but you're not responsible for all of the requirements of making sure that it was done and the crew was there and the tools were there and the ladders and all the things and the insurance. So you're still getting the prep. You don't have the stress of putting the shutters up and getting a crew together. Some would say, well, I can make more money doing that. That's fine if that's what you want to do. I'm just saying that it can run into a real stressful situation. So those are ways that you can handle it. It's just some things that you should think about. There's no right or wrong way because I've done it all, and so it's just whatever you can tolerate, whatever you're insured for. Those are the things I most consider. So I wouldn't sit here and try to tell you that hurricane season is a hop, skip, and a jump, and there's nothing to worry about. That it would magic system. There isn't. But what you can do prior to a storm eliminates some of the stress during a storm. The items, and when I say prior to a storm, I'm talking about way before the season heats up, when it's calm, when you're looking to make as much money as you can. And it saves you the stress when the system, when the a storm is coming. But having a system in place, realizing how you're going to schedule the homes that need to be shuttered as opposed to the homes that um, don't need any shuttering, and you have some of that as well, I'm sure. Understanding that you need to communicate before, during, and after if you can, and then making sure that when you are finally into the post-storm documentation, that we have a tendency to rush ourselves because we're trying to get to as many homes as we can each day. There's two things that happen. First of all, as you rush yourself, you will forget things and not get paid for things. And that's really not what you're in business for. I mean, if you wanted to work for free, you would just be a home watch person for all your friends, relatives, and neighbors, right? And then the other thing is, too, when you're rushing like that, you have a tendency to emotionally wear out way before the end of the day. And so that's important too, that you somewhat pace yourself, because it will be the most grueling 4 or 5 days if you have 100 customers that you've ever experienced. And while it's part of the business, don't make it the part of the business that eventually you say to yourself, I just don't want to go through another hurricane season, so I'm just not going to be in the home watch business. Before you come to that conclusion, come up with a different way to handle what's been stressing you out during that hurricane season. And some of these ideas I think will help you. But if you get down to the point where you're thinking that hurricane season is just not worth it, yeah, give me a call. I'll talk to you about it, and maybe we can come up together, putting two heads together, with a solution. I hope this has been helpful for you, and if it has, make sure you smash the like button if you haven't done that already. Please do. Share it with somebody, and certainly subscribe if you haven't. When you subscribe, you actually help the channel. You help me get the information out to more people just like yourself, and help them as well. And quite frankly, that's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned. And so, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.